My husband was recently diagnosed with diabetes, so we have been taking our home-style cooking and lowering the carb count for him to be able to eat the same stuff that we eat, but in a more carb-friendly way. And I wanted to share with you some of those home cooking type meals that are more carb conscious and better for diabetics. So we're going to do 6 days, I think it's 6 days, of dinners. And I hope that you enjoy. And let me know if you have any carb conscious tips and tricks. And yeah, that's my super professional intro. Here we go. First, we'll be making a low-carb broccoli cheddar soup. We're going to get broccoli, onions, celery, carrots, and some stock together, as well as some shredded cheddar cheese. We're going to chop up your onions, and if you want one of these compost bin stickers, you can find it in my Etsy shop. We save our compost to feed our worms and to feed our compost for our garden. I also have one that is for chicken scraps. So we're going to dice up this onion and get this going first. Saute in a little bit of butter or other oil, whatever you've got. Now we'll add some diced up carrots, just a little bit, otherwise the soup will turn a little bit more brown than you'd like. Celery is a great low-carb option to add in. It gives it another depth of flavor as well. Now we're going to start adding our broccoli, and I had a lot of broccoli to add. I think it ended up being about 3 large heads of broccoli, but remember, I'm feeding 8 people here, so tailor this recipe to your own needs. We'll go ahead and stir this up and let it cook just a bit more before adding any liquid or seasonings. This is homemade chicken stock, and it doesn't have any added salt or other flavorings, just chicken stock. You don't want to make it too thin with too much stock. Toss a lid on and let it start cooking down. Now, I've got little kids who are not big fans of soup, so I want to have some good options for them. I usually cut up some fresh vegetables to have on the side or instead of the soup, because my two of my youngest girls really prefer fresh veggies, so I always have that ready. We're going to puree the soup. If you have a stick blender, use it. I don't. And pour it back in here. Add some milk and seasonings if desired. Salt and pepper is basically all I added. Stir it up, and there you go. Nice low-carb, creamy broccoli soup. We're going to add some cheese. However much you enjoy, go for it. Just adds protein, doesn't add too much carbs. It's delicious. For my kiddos, I went ahead and toasted grilled cheeses and just cut them in half. If you are doing low carb and you're an adult who can handle not having a cheese sandwich, then obviously you'll skip your cheese sandwich. But this is how we make it work for the rest of our family, so that my kiddos can also have something delicious to eat that fits their palates a little bit better. On Wednesdays we have Italian, and that usually means pasta. Now, My best suggestion for pasta is to serve it alongside of a high protein and vegetable meal. Just use a little bit. I didn't have any macaroni noodles. All I had was these lasagna noodles, so I just broke them up. We're going to make an Italian soup. We're going to start with some dry kidney beans, and we're going to rinse them off and get them cooking. Now I am using mild ground Italian sausage this time, mostly because my store was out of plain pork. But you would really do better if you used plain ground pork, because there is dextrose in Italian sausage. So just giving you that forewarning just in case you're new to this whole game. But we're going to cook up about a pound of pork and about a pound of beef. I am adding some Italian seasoning. It's just a blend, but if you don't have the Italian seasoning herbs, you can use rosemary, you can use thyme, anything you got. I also like to add a little bit of chili powder just to spice it up. The beans are par cooked, and now we're going to be adding this sausage into the pot of beans so that the beans can start taking on the delicious flavor of the seasoned meat. Now into the skillet we're going to put a couple bell peppers, onion, and celery all chopped up. They get better flavor if you do them in a skillet instead of tossing them just into the pot of soup. Now I'm adding a big can of petite diced tomatoes. You definitely want these, but you want to make sure that they don't have any added sugar. Occasionally you find sauces that are tomato based that have a lot of sugar in them. I like to cook my noodles separately, and I can add it into the soup at whatever ratio I think is appropriate. Some of my kids like just the noodles, so it's nice to have those on hand as well. Now we're going to be making a treat. This is an experiment, and it uses cottage cheese and strawberries to make a sort of an ice cream, a very high protein ice cream. I started with 2 cups of frozen whole strawberries and 2 cups of whole fat cottage cheese. It was very thick, so I added just a little bit of milk to help it blend down a little bit better. Vanilla extract and some cinnamon help give it a little bit of a sweet flavor, and then we'll add just a little bit of sugar. I'm putting in about a tablespoon, and then I'm going to taste it to see how it goes. Here's what it looks like, and we're going to give it a little bit of a taste to see if it needs more of anything. I thought it was okay, but it needed a little bit more of the vanilla and cinnamon and sugar, so I ended up adding a little bit more, and this is what it looks like when it's mostly frozen. It was good with some graham cracker crumbs. On this meal, we are making stir-fry chicken. After cutting up some chicken thighs, I went ahead and started frying them in a pan. I didn't add any fat because there's a little bit of fat on the chicken, and I felt that would be enough for this dish. After it's been cooking a little while, I stirred it up, and I'm going to add some sliced up onions. I had some baby carrots and some radishes left over from lunch, so that's what's getting tossed in. You can add any vegetables that you like in this stir fry. I'm using quite a bit of soy sauce in this, and I'm not going to be seasoning it with any extra salt, just the soy sauce. I'm adding some of my homemade vinegar. You can use rice wine vinegar, but if it's seasoned, make sure it's not with any added sugar. A little black pepper to spice it up. And now let's make the rice. I'm using brown rice and a quinoa. I'm going to mix them together after I've rinsed them. And you just cook them the same way that the brown rice package has. Quinoa is a higher protein and lower carb grain, so it makes more sense for diabetics. The next step is optional. If you want this thicker, you can thicken it with some cornstarch. We did want it a little thicker. Now this does add some carbohydrate to it, so you can do this at your own discretion. You can use less or more, but it will add some carbs to it, but it made it a little bit more filling for us. With everything cooked up, I decided I wanted a little extra crunch, so right at the end I added some raw cabbage, and then I will be adding some sliced almonds in there for a little bit of a crunchier mouthfeel when you top the rice with it. You can check, and you can make sure that the air conditioning is on if you'd like. My girls are not super fond of the cooked veggies, so we made an alternate little snack for them, but everybody else got this. It's burger night, and buns mean carbs, so we are going to make a chaffle. It is cheese and egg, and we'll use a little bit of baking powder and almond flour, and we will make a little waffle and use that for the burger bun. So a single recipe is half a cup of mozzarella, 2 tablespoons of almond flour, 1 egg, and 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking powder, but it didn't make very much, so I doubled it. And now we're going to get it into the waffle iron and cook it up. You have to sort of spread this out to make it fit and make it nice and flat, but I think you'll be surprised how well it does. It looks a little gooey and it's a little hard to get out, but I promise you that if you let it cool for a few seconds, you're going to be very surprised by how tasty this is. My husband really liked it. We're making some sweet potato fries because they are lower on the glycemic index than traditional white fries. And here we're stacking up our burger with low-carb treats, dill pickle, some mayo on that, and side of sweet potato fries, and a better dip than ketchup is mayonnaise if you like that. Last meal that we're going to be making is a low-carb ramen. I'm starting by slicing up some chicken thighs really nice and thin, and I'm going to be frying those in bacon grease. But if you don't have bacon grease to fry in and you want to do regular oil, that's great. Or if you just want to pan fry that, whatever meat you've got, sizzle it up. Let's add some protein to our ramen. I'm frying up some garlic for some extra flavor. These will be fun to mash in your fork on top of your ramen. I like to make a quick pickle, and this time I'm using radishes. I'm going to cut them nice and thin, and I'm going to heat up some water and vinegar and salt in my microwave so that I can add my radishes to it and pickle them really quickly for my lunch. It only takes about 10 minutes for them to get a really good pickle flavor. Seal them up and give them a shake and wait till it's time to eat. I like to put poached eggs on my ramen, so we're going to poach some eggs here in water and vinegar with a little bit of salt. Many chicken bouillons, as well as the packs that come with ramen noodles, do contain sugar, so consider that when you're making your broth. I'm using Miracle noodles for my husband, and I'll be using traditional ramen noodles for the rest of us. So you just put these in there for a little bit to warm them up, and then I'm going to top it with the egg, and then I'll be adding the broth here after I get some of the other toppings on. The Miracle noodles have a really nice kind of springy mouthfeel to them. Here I'm topping it with some of our fried chicken and all sorts of vegetables, and I forgot to show that I added the pickled radishes in this clip, but trust me, I did. So which one of these meals was your favorite? We enjoy all of them, but I think that the ramen is my husband's favorite of all of those because it's kind of like a trick to having something that's definitely on the no eating list for diabetics. Ramen noodles is just not something that you could typically eat in a low-carb diet, so I think that was one of his favorites. But let me know what your favorites are, and we'll see you around the homestead. God bless.